The Local Show, featuring conversations with business owners, employees, and local business leaders about their successes, challenges, and reasons for doing business. Right here in Central New York. The Local Show is locally produced by Zoey Advertising. Now your hosts, Tom and Steve.
Back at it. You found your way to The Local Show right here on 570 WSYR 1069 FM. And you can see us on YouTube. Feel free to pop on over there. And you can see Bob Holden-Betts, who's my co-host for the day, because Steve is off on personal business. And we've been having a good time. Steve... Not Steve, but Bob is the owner of Hobe Honey, Hobe. And did you have a website?
Yes.
Oh, you do?
HobeHoney.com, Hobe honey.com.
And then Facebook page at all? Or?
Yeah, Hobe Honey Facebook.
And you can see Bob. Do you have pictures going all the way back to when you had flaming red hair? Or
Probably not.
Probably not that far.
It's still salted, even the old photos.
But people can see you and your family probably taking care of the bees and all that.
Yeah.
Trista is your wife, and does she get into the bees? Does she like it or no?
She gets into the bees. She helps out in any way that she can.
Okay,
she's especially good at infusing the honey.
With flavors.
Yeah.
Bourbon.
Lavender is a big thing. So
I went right for bourbon, but yes, lavender, I guess.
She doesn't grow too much bourbon these days. It's mostly lavender.
And what about your friends who have the bourbon honey?
At Lock One Distillery.
Lock One.
A partnership collaboration with them. We use their bourbon. They use our honey. They do a honey bourbon. We do bourbon barrel aged.
Two great tastes that go great together, right?
Yes.
There you go. Okay. Well, that's Bob Holden-Betts, co-host right here. And now it is our pleasure to bring back onto the show Liz Krisanda. She's the executive director of the ALS Association Upstate New York chapter. How are you?
Good. How are you today?
Very good. It's good to see you again, Liz. Have any buckets of ice dumped on you lately, or
no? But this is the 10th anniversary of the Ice Bucket Challenge, so I am getting ready for a summer of ice buckets.
Oh yeah,
10th year already.
10th year.
Wow,
Yes.
that's great.
I remember when they started that thing. What is your background, Liz? What did you do before ALS?
Oh, I've always been in the nonprofit work. I actually started my career as a counselor, and then when you're in the nonprofit field, I started as a program person, and then you come kind of a fork in the road, whether you're going to continue with that or you kind of go on to operations and development and fundraising, and that's where I am.
Okay. Are you homegrown? Were you from Syracuse originally?
I actually am originally from Liverpool, New York, and then my husband was in the military, so I traveled the South, and then we came back here to raise our family.
Nice. And was your husband from here too?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
Yep. We both went to Syracuse University.
Oh, no kidding.
Yep.
And what years were you there?
Oh my gosh. He graduated in 84 and I graduated in 86.
Nice. Well, we're the same age exactly then. Yeah.
Ouch.
I know. What do you mean, ouch? We're still vibrant.
I'm going back to 86 and I'm like doing the math in my head.
It's, that was fun times. Man, I used to love being up there and working at the radio station, and things were all different. I go up there now and the traffic patterns are all different. You can't drive the car in the same places we used to drive the cars back then.
Exactly. Going up the walk to the Hall of Languages.
Yeah, the Hall of Languages.
Exactly.
Yeah. Boy, I ran out of breath doing that many times, I'll tell you that. Okay, so ALS, explain to people who may not know, they might be living under a rock, what ALS is.
Okay, so ALS, which ALS stands for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, it's also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. Mm-hmm. And what it is it's actually the nerve cells actually on the side of your spinal cord deteriorate and die. And those are the nerve cells that conduct impulses from your brain to your voluntary motor functions, which is why people with ALS typically lose ability to move. It starts like in your fingers and toes and then moves inward into your body, or sometimes it actually starts in your throat and your neck muscles first.
I see.
And then eventually people with ALS die because they lose the ability to breathe, because breathing is a voluntary motor function.
Right. Now, how did they find that in Lou Gehrig? I remember watching the Lou Gehrig story, but what happened that they diagnosed him with that?
Well, what happens is it's been around, forever. It used to be called the wasting disease, which is just because people would just lose their ability to function.
That's terrible.
And so he was a very famous person who had it. And so it was kind of renamed, actually in the United States, Lou Gehrig's disease. In the rest of the world, it's actually known as motor neuron disease.
I gotcha. Yeah, and it's interesting. It doesn't matter what your diet is. It doesn't matter how healthy you are. How does it come upon people? How do people get it?
So for 90% of people who have ALS, they have absolutely no family history of ALS. It's what's called sporadic. What we do know from research that's been going on recently is that there's a lot of genetic components to it. Like we've identified genes that are associated with it, but we haven't found like the one. For about 10% of people with ALS, there is a genetic component, and it's in their families, and it's actually rife in their families. Like you will go back generations, and there'll be someone in every generation or multiple people in the same family that have ALS. If you have ALS from a gene, you have a 50% chance of passing that on to one of your children.
Good golly. So can you also get ALS through any trauma?
So now you're going into the research. So what we are learning is that there is a genetic component. What we're looking for are, like with cancer or Alzheimer's or other diseases, what is perhaps an environmental trigger that may cause ALS or bring it on. One of the theories, and what we do know, is there are pockets of ALS around large bodies of water with blue-green algae.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Is that new research?
It's actually one of the things that we're now able to track.
Okay.
There's for the past 15 years, the National Institute of Health has been doing what's called an ALS registry, and so we're starting to collect that data, and that's one of the things that we're finding.
Do they have the blue-green algae up there in the Lake Ontario?
I don't know.
No. I know they had it in the Skinny Atlas. They were finding
Skinny Atlas Lake, and there are other
Oneida.
lakes,
I live up by Oneida. Yeah,
so even in New York State, there are some pockets. There's some pockets out in western New York around some of the lakes out there, and also where they have a lot of farming. So then there's the concern perhaps of chemicals and stuff leaching into groundwater. That's
interesting. So a lot of research has been done over the years, and obviously your organization pioneering a lot of that and championing that. How can people get involved to get money funneled into ALS?
So, there are a few ways. Okay. So we are actually the largest private funder of ALS research actually in the world.
Gotcha.
We are completely, privately, we do our fundraising, whether it's through direct giving. We have events in New York State. We actually have like 3 walks to defeat ALS. We have one in Buffalo, one Rochester, one here in Syracuse in September. And we also do an event in the summer, actually this August, called the CEO Soak, which is an event. It's kind of a take on the Ice Bucket Challenge, where we have business leaders in the community that are raising money, and then we actually put everybody in the Clinton fountain, and they are soaked.
Well, yeah, I would imagine so.
Have you done this before?
This actually is our 3rd year.
Okay.
And so we're really gaining traction on it this year. We've got, actually, what's really fun is actually Dr. Corona from SUNY Upstate is actually going to be participating with us in the Soak this year, which is really
that's
exciting.
Wonderful. I think I know his son, Brian Corona. Yeah, who was into music and stuff like that. Interesting. So how can people get involved right away? Like if they want to make a donation, where do they go?
So if you want to make a donation right away, just go to www.als.org, and then you just /New York State, and it'll take you right to a donation page, and you can actually donate directly to an event or just directly to the association. And there's like actually a drop-down menu where you can decide, do you want to go to research? Do you want to go to local programs and services?
That's excellent. And we have about 30 seconds left. I want to ask you quickly, are things moving in the right direction? Are we looking at maybe being able to put this thing off a little further or curing it altogether?
So what I can tell you is in the 10 years since the Ice Bucket, we have identified 12 new genes. We have 40 clinical trials currently underway. When I started the ALS Association, there was only 1 drug, and there are now 4.
Excellent. So things are going in the right direction.
Things are going the right way.
Yeah.
Excellent. Liz Krisanda right there. She's the executive director of the ALS Association, Upstate New York chapter, als.org. You can go over there as well. Thank you so much for all you do, Liz.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay. Coming up next, we're going to talk with Scott Titus. He's the marketing director at Usherwood Office Technology right here on the local show on 570 WSYR.